That is the perfect analogy for Australia and America I've ever heard.
See, it's funny because on the other side of the coin, you've got the UK where nothing can kill you, yet you don't want any of it near you still.
Yeah.
You do care.
Everything's
And
just a little
everyone
crunchy.
fucking hates each other. Yeah.
I feel like you still have too many relics and walls and weird boundaries left up from Roman wars, like the Divide of Ireland. Like, come on. I know how many headaches that must cause. Get over it.
Listen, man, we just threw a big whole thing about some woman dying, okay? We've got a few issues. I saw people just sobbing their eyes out over this woman they never knew.
It's interesting the divide that it creates between people as well. It's crazy the difference between generations of how different people view.
I guess the salient point of all of this is that, you know, when I think about Australia, there's that common link in that head of state, and I think that's what always interests me is in Australia as well, is that they have always been on the British periphery in terms of culture anyway. So to see something come out of Australia like this, it's quite relatable as somebody from the UK. Even just like a really base point, I think it speaks to me in a lot of ways, which, you know, I could easily see in America, I could easily see in the UK. I've been staying on topic and away from politics.
Yeah. Okay, what were we talking about?
So, in that scene where we zoom out and we see all the different worlds inside the geometric circular shape thing, but is that shape all different versions of that same universe, or are they all different universes inside that?
Yeah, are they meant to be all variants of like the same timeline, or are they kind of just completely different in every sense of the word?
I think that's it. I think they're all completely different in every sense of the word, and like the big geometric shapes are the expression of infinity, like an infinite complex amount of them. I think just getting back to what you were saying briefly there, George, was that with Sassy, I think there's like a purity to him. There's a lack of ego with him. It's his nature. He just is. It's very sort of zen. And I think because of that, he experiences the same situations in the same way. It kind of every situation resolves itself in the same way because he's the same. He doesn't really change. There isn't any ego to steer him one way or the other. But just like we saw with the magic jelly bean, you know, if you flip a coin enough times, eventually it lands on his side, and that's kind of what we saw when he refused to eat it and he threw it in the fire. It's like there's always a small chance that things are going to change, but just down to his essence, down to who he is, I just think there's not much variation.
What I think is interesting though is it kind of canonizes. You know how in the one where Clarence is like
do your
useless
worst
or something, and then the story is Sassy just walks onto set one day. So is it possible that we are watching Clarence's show because Sassy essentially wrote what he's lived through multiple times? Or are we watching him live through it? Do you get what I mean?
Oh shit.
I do sort of see that in a way, because we do see, again, in the new series, we see that he goes back in time and goes and collects all of his friends from different points in time. So he's been sent to observe all the different things going on and take it all in, and in reality he's almost created his own little world.
Yeah, I think it's interesting how all of the different Sasquatches are from different times, but it seems like Donnie is like the oldest one. Like, how far does that line go? I'm thinking, is it like multiple Sasquatches?
You will learn what it means.
In Donnie's time, Donnie just went missing. How do the Sasquatches reproduce? Like, are there female Sasquatches?
Oh, I thought about that. Yeah, there's none of them. We haven't seen it anyway.
I used to think that all the Sasquatches were like Sassy, that they just were. But no, it's confirmed that Sassy is kind of a god. and all the other Sasquatches are only, kind of fourth wall breaking because Sassy kind of touched them.
And Sassy in that moment where Sassy talks to himself, and you see all the multiverses and everything, like they're existing, they're having a conversation outside of time, outside of space at that moment, and that sort of tells you that Sassy, the real essence of Sassy, exists outside of space and time. It's a transcendent concept.
Running will get you nowhere!
If that conversation they had was outside of time, does that mean when Sassy erases his memories and goes back in time, does he also have that conversation again? I think this is one of those things that probably not. We're not going to get anywhere by thinking about that. I'm just thinking about it now, my head's hurt. Oh my god,
It's mad. It's crazy for what on the surface looks like just a simple, funny cartoon. It's nuts the depth that actually goes into it.
Good.
There's some real profound moments. I remember when Mushroom Island 2, when Wake Up comes on for the first time. If you were reasonably high when you saw it, it was a really profound experience.
Oh, I was. That's why Wake Up is my favourite piece of music ever written. Because just the kind of enlightenment I came to after hearing Sassy's words then. I've always carried that kind of advice with me ever since.
Mm.
You've always got to look at things from outside of your perspective. Try and see things out of your personal judgment.
Yeah, there's a very sort of Zen undertone to I think Alan Watts, Lao Tzu and stuff like that.
Yeah, I can see that. The songs from the original show are all sort of like, they're ingrained in my mind now, because when I was first watching the Big Les show was also coincidentally the same time that I was first dabbling with mushrooms.
Oh, no way.
My friend and I would spend a lot of weekends sitting there tripping on mushrooms, and we would listen to the Big Les soundtrack, and I had the whole soundtrack saved in my Spotify as a separate playlist so that we could listen to it while tripping, and it just created the whole the playlist is just organized perfectly. You'd find during the trip the songs would just perfectly match the moment, and it would just guide you in like the most perfect way. And I don't know if Jared did that on purpose or not, but if he did, hats off to him, bro. It would feel like an entire story of itself. And I have moments I'll listen to various songs from it, or I'll see scenes from the show and I'll hear those bits of music and it will take me back to that time, and I'll just think like, wow.
Yeah, I'd relate to that. Somehow Spotify, my algorithm picked up the fact that I like to listen to stuff from the soundtrack on my commute to work in the morning. I guess that is also coincidentally when I am the highest during the day, like before I go to work. But it's gorgeous, man. Like you have those quiet moments with the headphones on and you're going in the morning, and then suddenly, blooming, you start thinking differently. It's beautiful.
Yeah, like you said, they're ingrained in my mind. I hear like just a note from one of them songs, and I know exactly what it's from.
I think George said
Please come again.
LPs.
Shall I choose something?
Like some vinyl soundtracks.
Oh my god! It really is incredible. When I first saw the one where he, at the start of the episode, he walks up to the tree and leans on the tree and then sees the sunset.
Delighted to.
And it's got playing in the background. The first time I saw that, I remember distinctly, I was lying in bed watching it and I had a joint. I was just watching him walk up the hill and then got to the tree, and then it switched to the scene where you just look at his face, and I instantly was just like, I feel you, mate. I feel you. Like, I so feel you. And then you see the sun go down, and it was just like, he just captures it so perfectly.
I won't laugh.
You'd never think that paint would look so like gorgeous.
See, there you are.
Yeah, it's all it is a sunset. There's so much in that sunset, if that makes any sense.
yeah, I remember watching that as well. I was as well in bed, equally high with the joint, Just, I've always made sure to have a joint while watching each new episode.
It's a rule.
It's a rule, it's just, I don't want to have one, but, it's the law.
Someone's got to, haven't
Yeah, of course. If I don't, who's going to fucking do it?
they? Fucking me, mate. Oh, it was great. And then it blends into that scene where he sits down and talks to the caterpillar and just gives the caterpillar the pep talk. And at the time,
my God, yeah.
when I saw that, I personally needed that pep talk.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah,
I think
I was the same
you
way.
look at the comments of the video and you see everybody is just unanimously agrees like that pep talk, just everyone took it to themselves, not just the caterpillar.
Yeah, that's what I love. You take kind of out of context chat. It's like it's Sassy talking to Les about microscopic paint, but it applies to real life as well. It's like talking to a caterpillar. It's just amazing and profound, the shit he talks about.
And I think
That made that caterpillar's day.
it made my
Fucking
day.
jealous. Jealous of that caterpillar.
When I've come across animals or insects in the wild, I've seen them and I've made sure to tell them that they're fucking amazing.
Yeah.
What's going on, Mark?
Just imagine being that caterpillar sat there on a log. All you know is just eating leaves, nothing else. Your entire life so far has just been eat green things. You sit there on a log at night and you're trying to get to sleep, and then this big monstrous Sasquatch just comes and sits next to you and then just tells you that you're the most amazing thing in the world.
Something really beautiful about that, isn't there?
Yeah.
But I think that's part of the reason that the show is quite, so successful. I think on average it's got 3.5 million views a video or something, or 1 million.
Fucking fair play.
Yeah, and I think the reason for that is that there's something about it which is relatable to everybody. It hits you on a very, very fun. Yeah, I think there's a lot to be. And as we said before, we've already touched on it. Again, just tying it into to the success of the show. Yeah, it's apparent. Everyone's got a story. They sort of relate to it on a deeper.
Yeah, I still remember like the first time I ever watched Big Les, man. It was a magical experience.
That is the only word for it, isn't it? It is magical.
Yeah, because first you only see it for like this shit little cartoon. I remember I was 3 a.m. My mate messaged me like going, "You have to watch this," and it was what episode was it? It was license. Don't F1. Vehicle registration. The fuck's a V-Hail resuscitation? It was that episode. And I just died laughing, and I just couldn't stop watching it from there.
Boys in blue, boys. Boys in blue.
Boys in blue. Where's Donnie? Oh, I think he like the eye.
Oh, yeah. I remember
that Sassy's concerned about is a spider.
Don't worry, Mike. We'll get more drugs. Oh, guess we're not going to the water park today, eh? No, that episode to this day is like one of my favourites. I love it so much.
I can't choose. There's so many that just like they're just incredible, and a lot of them are the earlier ones as well, the really short ones.
Yeah.
There was some moments in those that were just quality.
What helps with them is how short they are, because it's like a quick punchline with a lot of them.
Yeah.
So it was a bit before the trippiness and that started coming into it, where it was just more, humour based. I think that really works for it.
I wonder if Jared planned from the start to make it into what it became, or whether in the start it was just supposed to be just some funny little short clips sort of thing. I wonder if from the start he had the idea of the universe in his head, or...
I'd really love to ask him that, actually, because I know it was like, a lot of it was based off of Lost. That's why there was the whole island thingy and that.
When I spoke to him and we had conversations about this, and he said to me that one of the major influences he had on the structure of the series was the way that the Marvel Cinematic Universe had gone. with every character having something to contribute to an overall sort of meta story.
I got that when they started talking about the multiverses and when Sassy's higher self said that he was a watcher.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
planted Easter eggs in the early Big Les show episodes. So that my impression from talking to him was that this had been something he had planned from the offset, and that he kind of had a direction in mind ever since sort of day one, ever since those early days. There was always a continuity nature to the episodes. So, like, if you saw that something got broken in one episode, the next episode it would still be broken. There was a definite continuity and build up in terms of story.
I've got to say though, this is probably my personal opinion, but it's crazy to me how Jared handles the multiverse concept infinitely better than what Marvel's doing at the moment.
You're not wrong.
Yeah, that's a story for another day. Outer Sassy, you know when like it fully zooms out and you see like him in his full scale, it really looks like the hill he's sitting on is the same one from the wake up scene, because Sassy doesn't remember having that chat with Les. Like, is that what are we talking about? That might have been him chatting with Outer Sassy.
Oh, I've never thought of that before.
It only clocked on to me last night.
That would explain all of the moments where something happens and Sass says, "What are you talking about?"
Sassy also moves around in time, so it could be a non-omnipotent Sassy that was popping in to fix something.
Oh yeah, of course it could be. It's just something I noticed. Like, it might even just be a bit of a reference to that kind of Sassy. You know, the Outer Sassy is like the pure essence of the philosophical, shit.
Jono, I think you brought up Alan Watts, but ego death, happens if you get sufficiently cracked out. Well, if you hit the 5-HT2A receptor with enough. So what happens to Sassy if he already has ego death equivalent amount of drugs and has one of these trippy moments?
He's on doing that constantly.
Yeah, that was more or less exactly what I was going to say, Tom. That's kind of his nature, is that he'll slip through the cracks in reality and go to places like we could only trip, our hardest, and only get a tiny fraction of what he does on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
It's like he said, "What do you mean you're my higher self? I'm high right now."
Yeah.
I'm the highest cunt.
Yeah, they do also say though in the episode where they go to the cinema that Sasquatches do just have to take drugs. It's good for them.
It's good for you.
Heroin, man.
That is crazy. Like, it's weird that applies to all Sasquatches. Is it a coincidence that this outer god just happens to be a Sasquatch himself? Like, could the whole species of Sasquatches be linked to Sassy somehow? It's like they all seem to have that ability to just take ungodly amounts of drugs.
But we do see some Sasquatches that we don't see take any drugs at all. Like Cecil.
We don't know that.
No, we don't know that for sure.
Cecil is definitely a cracker.
Don't waste my time.
Or a Roy Monger, yeah.
A rat.
Each Sasquatch specialises in a different drug.
Hey, there's an idea. I want to see the meth Sasquatch.
I don't think you do. I think his name is Keith. He stole the kayak from us.
Wait, what?
That's a long story.
You just can't blue ball is like that.
Yeah, low hanging fruit. Let's go. Come on.
Let's see. He was on the run from the law, living in a trailer with a local agent over by the river. But these guys just cooked meth and they had ghosted like the trailer. They just walked around and shoot on the floor and got into the meth. And he had a boat and he would float down the river and collect nice driftwood and then sell it to rich people. And he was actually making like $700-800 a week doing this. And he lost the boat. I don't know how. So he asked to borrow a kayak, and I've never seen him again.
Oh.
So he kayaked.
So you finally came to see me. Everyone falls for me.
But if I've got anyone who's that's into the kayak, I'll let you know.
Jesus Christ, boys. Fucking sword.
That rolling up a moon rock.
Oh, I've always wanted to try moon rocks.
It's so my normal is
You'll kill me!
and if you keep it in the freezer, it then stops all the hash and stuff from being slippery and it holds it into one piece. So then when you take it out of the freezer, you just break it up, put it in the grind it up, and then it all just goes through normal, and then you can just go.
Why are you doing this?
Very crazy.
You can't be serious!
Me.
Why? Why would you do this?
I wouldn't be smoking at the time.
What are you doing?
Like it was because of the idea of smoking.
Okay. That's cool as shit.
Yeah, there's about like 12 months later that I tried my first job. Actually got like a bomb, kind of like a can bomb was the first time we learned about it.
Baptism of fire.
Yeah, it just came to me that, oh mate, I want to do this with me, it's sick. And I was like, yeah,
A dream!
this is a dream.
I had a friend in Canada, like, in the way that he tried to read what it's like.
So
He
cold!
would ask me, do you know anyone that can get like loads? And I was like, what do you mean loads? And he's like, can you get me a loaf? We've got a loaf of bread. He's like, no. He's on about a loaf that's like a loaf of hash that's the size of a shoebox. And I'm like, well, no, I'm a 14-year-old kid.
What a fact.
I don't have where I was going introduced to smoking to a can. I'd never thought I'd done it really before, and he got a Coke can out one day and just started punching holes in it. And we were just like, what are you doing? He was like, I'm making a song. And we were like, okay. And he just sat there punching these holes in the can. And then bent it in a few ways, and then just got a whole nug out. He didn't grind it up or anything, just put an entire bud on the can, and then just lit it and smoked the whole thing. And I was just, my mind was blown at that point.
Listen, if it works, it's not stupid, right?
How old was everybody when they first had a joint?
That's a good question. I think I was about 15, I want to say.
I reckon my first one was about 17, 18. So I was a good boy for most of my life. Like a downward spiral. Oh.
You've got a lot of catching up to do, sir. A toad.
Oh, you'll be doing rapid catch-up then.
He just went straight to fucking heroin.
Never like taking any other shit.
I started smoking weed when I was 14 and pretty much have constantly smoked it since. I'm pretty much an everyday smoker.
What a mad lad.
Yeah.
I smoked only weed and did nothing else at all from the age of 14 until I was 21, I think. And I was adamant I wouldn't do anything else. I wouldn't even get drunk. And I still, to this day, I actually haven't been drunk. I've never been drunk. I'll have a drink. I'll enjoy a drink, and I do enjoy certain drinks. But I've never drunk enough to get drunk. I'd always said to myself that if I was to do anything else apart from smoke weed, it would be mushrooms because they were natural, and that was my sort of reasoning for it. And
That's exactly my reasoning for it.
One day, a friend of mine turned to me and he said, "I've been thinking of trying them." And we had a little conversation about it, and we were sort of thinking about it, and I wasn't too sure, but he was quite set on it. So I started asking some people that I knew whether they could get hold of any. And a couple of weeks later, randomly, somebody that I knew pops up and said that they had liquid extract, and it was in like a little vial bottle like you'd get of LSD, and each drop would be, I think each drop was 0.5 grams equivalent of cubensis. And we were just like, fuck it, you know what, we'll get it, sod it. And we did, and we tried that, and then we said again, we were like, no, we won't do anything else, we'll stick to just doing shrooms occasionally and smoking weed. And then the topic of LSD came up, and we won't go into my LSD consumption. And then from there, I tried DMT, and I've done DMT quite a few times, but I haven't done it in a while, and I don't do shrooms anymore because I'll do them if I need them, but I won't do them just for the sake of it.
Yeah, I get that.
You get what I mean?
Hold on, because everyone I've ever talked to says they'll only do shrooms when they need them.
Shrooms are very... If you do a high dose of shrooms, the experience feels very much like you're going through something. It's not a case of like, say you go out and you get drunk or you get stoned or whatever, you're just enjoying yourself, you're having a good time. On a high dose of shrooms, there's very much this energy of you're going through something. If that makes any sense.
I would have no. I've never, like I said, I've only ever smoked weed. I would love to try them one day, though.
Just to tail in on the topic of shrooms, I'll tell you what, can I veer into a story just tangentially?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
When I used to live in the UK, I used to basically twice a year fuck off to Amsterdam to hit the psychedelic reset button. You know, right now, like my little like room in a hostel or whatever, and smoke a ton of weed, do some mushrooms. This girl, we've been seeing each other. She had a daughter, and this is the first time I'd been involved with anyone who had a kid. So I had hesitations and reservations about it for my own reasons. And anyway, months into this, and I'm like, nah, I'm gonna commit, you know. And anyway, that was the outcome of this magic mushroom trip that I had. Shrooms that made peace with it. Anyway, flying back to the UK, and the plane lands, and I get a text message, and it's from this call me, I'm pregnant. You know, it hit me, but suddenly this, you know, it was almost like a barrier. A wall was behind me, and I took it in my stride because I had already just made no reason. Maybe it was a coincidence. That trip was somehow intelligently put there just for that moment where I needed it.
Oh wow.
I find they usually are.
Yeah, it's always like the universe well times things.
Yeah, and I actually felt like that with mushrooms.
I find it's all in your head, and they force you to sort of, I don't know, it's hard to explain. It's always hard to explain when you're talking about psychedelics. There's a lot of things that don't make sense. It changes the way that your mind perceives things and looks at things, and it forces you into that
confrontation
thing of
whatever it is that you're breaking through. Yeah, and I think there's quite a sincere sort of severity about some trips, and I think that's why you don't get a lot of people that abuse them on the regular and do sort of use them quite medicinally and purposefully. You know, I always thought that if I take shrooms, it's going to be because I've got a purpose, because I've got something mentally.
Yeah, honestly, I've heard a lot about that. Like, they really help you come to terms with things in your head. And yeah, it's one of the reasons that I'm actually quite interested in trying them out now. But I'd really like to try and help reconcile some, dark thoughts and some shit going on in my head that I can't quite figure out on my own.
You
Yeah.
you have to take care with it. I think you have to.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah. That's why I
be
haven't done
me,
them
it,
yet.
it it might not be the same for other people, but I find that if you're specifically trying to get a purpose out of it, you need to have in your head before that experience, you need to know exactly what you're planning to get out of this, what you want,
Yeah,
what your mindset is, where you're sort of going with it, sort of thing, to help you. Because
yeah,
otherwise, it's quite easy, especially on a high dose of mushrooms, it's quite easy to forget about what you're actually trying to sort out because there's a lot going on.
oh yeah. As well, I'd just like to have that experience because everyone, like you guys have been describing, I've never had that kind of like just otherworldly experience with it, and I'd like to, even if I only ever did it once, I'd like
Yeah,
to know what that feels like.
It's
yeah,
addictive once you've
Yeah,
had that
that I can
experience. Not
imagine
like
it
not
is.
like I want to do this immediately, but now that I know this experience exists, you feel like it's something you can go back to or desire to go back to at some point in your life.
Oh
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
It's like
I
finding a
always
vacation
sort of,
spot.
yeah, or like an ability or something. It's like you've never swam in your life, and then suddenly you discover swimming, and fucking don't do it all the time. But then you can go around walking, and after you've done it once, you're like, shit, I really did do that. It wasn't like this, and it's that analogy, but converted into thinking. You think in a completely different way.
yeah,
It's nuts. I think only the people who have taken psychedelics will understand. But once you have had a psychedelic experience, everything is different. Nothing is the same ever again. Your entire life is just completely changed.
yeah. That's what I mean. I'd love to
You
know what
can't.
that kind of experience is to have my entire mind, my view of life changed.
The weird thing about it is you can't exactly pinpoint what's different. You can't tell. There's so much more to everything than you thought there was, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, yeah,
When, so before, I'm going to absolutely murder this explanation because I still don't really know how to. It's like before I ever had a psychedelic experience, my outlook on life was extremely simple. It was just like I'd been to school, I'd learned some stuff, I'd done some things, I got into work, I started working, and my life was just going to work and skateboard and do stuff, and that's life. It's simple. There's nothing else to it. Just what happens happens. And then I started doing psychedelics, and then suddenly everything is just so in depth, and you think about everything in such a different way, and it just opens your mind to a lot more than you just had before. Again, it's so difficult to explain. Tripping and psychedelics as a whole are just it is an otherworldly experience. It's undescribable.
yeah, yeah.
It makes so much sense, but no sense at the same time.
It's just like Jared said, you wake up, it's, Cersei said it best, wake up, it literally is that, it's an awakening, and once you're awake, you don't go back to
Yeah, Sassy always puts it in the right words.
fucking oath.
I can tell you an actual otherworldly experience. I would be interested to hear a story.
Yeah, of course.
So a couple of years ago, I went on holiday with some friends of mine down to the beach. We went to Cornwall. It was a mate of mine's birthday, and he wanted to go surfing, and we wanted to go and trip on the beach, and just have like a nice sort of boys' holiday away for the weekend type thing. So we went down there, and two of our friends weren't as into tripping as my friend and I were. They'd do a bit of acid with us every now and again, but they viewed it very differently to us, and they I don't know, I think they viewed it sort of the same as just smoking a joint or something like that. So one night, my friend and I were sitting on the sofa in the caravan that we'd rented, and we were already 3 tabs in, and the tabs that we were taking were, I think they were 120 micrograms each. So we'd had 360 micrograms already, which is quite a good dose of LSD by itself. And we decided that what we'd do was we'd go down to the beach and smoke changa, which is DMT fused into a mixture so that you can smoke it rather than vaporize it. So we walked down to the beach, we got our deck chairs out, sat down, we got wrapped up warm, we sat comfortably in the middle of these sand dunes. So where we were sat, we could hear the sea but we couldn't see it, and we were sat in the middle of these dunes in the middle of nowhere. And we shook hands and we said good luck, can't wait to see you on the other side, sort of thing. And we sparked our joints and started smoking them, and we literally went to another universe. There is no other way of describing it. We were sat on our deck chairs, and the sand dune around us transformed into like metal structures. You could see they were made out of metal plates. There were like bits of corrugated metal and flat stainless metal, and each of the plates you could see the rivets going down them where they've been rivet jointed together. And there were windows in the buildings, and each of the windows were sort of different shapes, like triangles, some were squares, some were circles, and they all had like a neon, different coloured light around them, an outline. This was incredible by itself. And then I looked up at the sky, and I'm quite into space, I'm quite into astronomy. I'm good at knowing where things are in the sky. I can look up and I can find things in the sky, and I know where they are, I know where to look, and I know most of the stars in the sky and the planets and stuff like that. So I looked up in the sky, and the first thing I noticed was that the moon, that at first was to our left, had disappeared. And I thought, oh, that's funny, it's gone behind a cloud. And then I noticed that there weren't any clouds in the sky. And I looked to my right, and there was a moon to the right, but it was twice as big as to the left of it, if I was putting it on like basically 45, 50 degrees. There was another moon that was about half the size of our moon, glowing a deep red colour. And I saw this and instantly thought to myself, what is going on? And I remember thinking to myself at that moment, I'm not actually like tripping as such. You know, when you're tripping on acid or mushrooms, you're looking around your room or wherever you are, and you can see geometric shapes, you can see the walls moving and stuff going on. None of that was happening. I couldn't see any geometric shapes. I couldn't see stuff moving. There was none of that going on. It was just my surroundings had completely changed, and obviously the moons had done what they'd done, which I still can't explain to this day. And I then at that point started looking at the other stars in the sky to try and figure out like where they were, and I couldn't find anything, and I couldn't recognise any stars. None of the constellations that I knew were there. There was nothing in the sky. Everything was different. And at that point I just sort of froze and was just looking around, and I just couldn't believe what was going on. And after we'd finished the story and we'd come back down to the DMT, I turned to my friend and he was just like, I have got the craziest thing to tell you. And he was like, so have I. And we swapped stories bit by bit, and we found out that we'd both had the exact same experience, and we'd both been the exact same thing and gone to the exact same place. And both of us to this day, the thing that we can say happened was that we were almost projected onto a different planet in a different universe or a different dimension. The only way I can compare it is, has everybody seen the new Star Wars films?
I'm vaguely aware of them.
In the new films, there's a scene where Kylo and Rey have a connection with the Force.
Yeah.
They don't see each other's surroundings, but they just see each other and they can speak to each other.
Yeah.
It was similar to that, as if we've been projected into the other surroundings, so almost the opposite. Instead of being able to interact with the other person or the other reality once a month or once every 2 months or so, we recount experiences that we've had on psychedelics, and it always comes up, and every time we just get so excited, and it's nutty. It's unexplainable. It's crazy. The stars were different, and the moons were in a different place.
There was 2 or 3 moons in that universe where they go to after they use the Black Key, I think it was, or maybe during Les's enlightenment when Sassy's talking to them.
Yeah, I think that it was in that bit. Yeah,
In the same sequence where Sassy rides the bicycle in space.
Yeah, you're onto something there, because I feel like in the series, the way the stars and the moon and everything behaves is off. Like we were talking a couple of days ago, and we noticed that the sun seems to rise in the southwest, and strange shit like that.
I'm gonna look out for that now.
So I'm gonna start looking at the show in a different way, just looking out for a little bit.
Yeah, and I mean, it could just be me being super fucking high and looking too deeply into stuff that, Jared's he's focused on other stuff. But, the stars and the moons and everything, they all seem to
Crazy. I think that is almost the point of the show, though. I think a very distinctive part of the show is that you are supposed to be able to look very, very deeply into it.
Yeah.
It helps your mind, again, to sort of have that reflection.
Yeah, there is definitely a depth to the show, even from like the early episodes. Do you remember like when the opening credits would come up, even the title screen, and Les would like break through it and start talking to you, break the fourth wall in the first couple of seconds of the show. There's definitely like, a meta sort of quality to it,
Yeah, there's always been that bit of meta quality to it.
Like layers, like you think you understand what's going on, and suddenly it's like bang, you zoom out and there's another layer to it, and bang, you zoom out another layer, and suddenly the character's directly talking to you. It's always got you on the back foot in that respect, and if we go into it in enough depth, like there's so many layers, if we've just said, to pull apart.
Phasing through the layers.
Exactly. That's what Sassy would want.
Oh, that was crazy the other day. Where I spoke to you guys about how I noticed the Phasing Through the Layers song is the exact same whether it's played forwards or backwards.
And the thing I think I noticed as well is the songs forward and backward. Like, backward is just forward reversed.
Yeah, I noticed that earlier as well. Forwards, backwards.
I think it was very intentional how forward is the first song you hear and backwards is the last song in the whole album.
Yeah, it sort of repeats that thing that Sassy goes through where he goes backwards again and again and again.
Oh, that's really clever. Yeah. Sorry, I'm really high. That hit me like a fucking truck.
It's crazy, man. We could literally sit here for hours and just go on about the different parts of it. That's why it's so good.
Yeah, there's so much to talk about. Like, every single episode, there's like 101 things you could bring up.
I want to know where Jared got the inspiration for the radar dish.
Which one was that? I can't quite remember.
In one of the earlier episodes, the Sasquatches all set up the satellite dish.
2063 Platinum Edition.
And then they just destroy Clarence with it.
It starts bleeding from the fucking face.
Oh, well, guess all you can do is smile.
Put a smile on your dial and...
Oh, I fucking love Clarence.
That's actually another really good idea for another episode. I think Clarence is an extremely interesting character to go onto an in-depth analysis of.
Yeah.
Because he's almost as much of an enigma as Sassy is, not in the same way. The character is made to suffer.
I think kind of like just as parallel to what I said earlier, that purity of Sassy, there's a lack of ego, like there's a consistency in his character that's not going anywhere, it's not being driven by anything other than what he is. Plaza has the same sort of consistency, but it's not through his intent, it's just that's the way the universe is keeping him prisoner in this fucking field of bad luck. He suffers.
They seem almost like pure opposites.
Yeah, there's a real polarity there, and I think there's a real sort of finiteness and consistency about some of Jared's characters. And with Claire's, it's just like, the universe is going to shit on him again and again and again because you're fucking Clarence.
How close are the other Sasquatches in terms of like knowledge of the universe to Sassy? Because Donnie seems to be close. He talks about, what dimension third.
Sass does stuff throughout the series, like he'll put his hand on you and you sort of become enlightened as well. And I've seen
That's it. Yeah, I
I
was going
feel
to
like
say that as
maybe,
well.
yeah, you know what I mean? It's like I feel like the people that he's done that to, they're the people that, there's a conscious shift. There's a memory shift. They become in tune with,
It's also kind of trippy that they become who they are
Oh.
because they have the memories of who they're going to become.
It's true. Their lives are planned out over and over again.
Yeah. I feel like that was kind of something I was thinking about the other day, is like there's a paradox with Sassy that I really like, in the fact that the first time you meet Sassy is not the first time he's met you. It's
Yeah.
never the first time in him meeting you, because he's cycled it so many times before.
Stupid man thing! You won't live long! You run!
It's the first time sometimes, but just his nature, the fact that he cycles, lifetimes in the universe, is constantly, it seems, it's never the first time. And sometimes he's conscious of those previous encounters. Like, in the Sassy series, where he flips between different universes.
Play with me some more!
And he doesn't forget what happens in between, from one universe to the other. He lives, adventures like you can imagine. And then comes back,
guess I should hold
into
back.
the space between universes, goes into another one, comes back, and then eventually stops, and there's a conversation with his essence. He doesn't sort of forget what the previous conversation with the essence was. He remembers all of it. So that tells me that Sassy does sometimes remember, like, he is tripped away. He's just going to the universes for food.
Crazy the idea that in that episode when he's blipping around, he's probably living out the equivalent of entire lifetimes in between those blips.
I have wondered that, because it doesn't specifically say how long he spent in each universe at a time.
No.
Was he just quickly dropping in, like, have a look at that? Or was he dropping in, living in an entire...
I think he's lost count of it, because when somebody asks him how old he is, I think he's been interrogated. He just doesn't get it, because I feel like for him, as you say, he's probably just gone and
My body!
At times, straight.
I wonder if when he actually returns back to his conscience, the higher conscience actually
Because it's Sassy the first Sassy. It's like you said, after Sassy returns to it, they can go off and explore another multiverse. So I might imply that there have been multiple Sassys, before him. There might even be multiple at the given moment. Different experiences, different outlooks on life. There might be a straight Sassy.
I don't know about that.
I don't know about that, but
I feel like that
multiverse.
Well, that was kind of an interesting thing about Sassmate, is that he's the only canonized, multiversal being in the Big Les show. So for me, to my head canon, there's only one Sassy in the fucking multiverse. And he has one consciousness that permeates all of the iterations of Sassy throughout the multiverse, Whereas that's not the same as
Okay,
Class and Les.
I should be able to get out.
There's different variations in them, and they've all got their own separate memories of what's going on. Unless, this goes back to what we were saying, Chief, unless when you get touched by Sassy and he puts his hand on you, awaken, then perhaps in those moments you're aware of all of the fucking shit that's going on with the other versions in the multiverse. Or maybe specific multiverses.
Well, maybe with specifically those 4 Sasquatches and Owlie, because he plucked them out of time and, like you said, put his hand on them. Maybe they also became like slightly multiversal beings, not quite the level of Sassy, but still, they're a singularity within the universe, sort of thing.
I guess it's possible. I mean, like, Donnie's done some fucking skit shit.
The entire blood
Kind of don't expect it. But nothing like Clarence,
by the likes of you.
Like, by fucking locating and bringing the bong back to life.
Thanks
and
to your
some
consistent
fucking crazy
patronage,
stuff.
I've expanded
Don't
my
just
services.
Donnie or stuff.
Well then, feel free to peruse.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, they might be aware, of the multiverse, but not able to manipulate it like Sassy can.
Dissatisfied? I
think
believe
they
this is a
probably
fair
know
price.
as much as we do by the end of
Have
the
a
new
wonderful
Sassy series.
adventure.
Because
Yeah.
judging just by Sassy's character, I feel like he's just not going to answer questions. He's not going to tell them. He's just going to say, "What are you talking about?"
So we told me.
Yeah,
So
and
the
if he
others
says
sort of go along with it at that point because they don't know anything else. They've just been plucked out of their little reality that they were in, and now they're stuck on some little farm.
and that sort of brings in Nigel, doesn't it? Like, he's just fucking lumped in with all these fucking Sasquatch, and they say, "Oh yeah, we're only going to stay for a night," and then bang, 30 years later.
I love that it took him a while to just accept that what was happening was true.
Ah, yes.
I like
At
Nigel.
first, yeah, he's a pretty cool character.
Yeah, I had my doubts about Nigel when I first.
What if the next series could be like a prequel to the whole show, so showing like how Browntown got
Securing
developed,
goods is more
and like
important
Nigel
than
going on
anything.
like ghost hunting or
Anything,
something
my friend.
against them, then like lights that were in the sky and all this shit that comes out the portal.
Aha!
Yeah, definitely going to have a Nigel series on the cards. Like, that's going to be fantastic. And a Donnie Shop series as well, and that would kind of open
Till
the door
next
for
we meet.
potentially exploring more of Clarence's story, because it would be a Donnie and Clarence sort of focus series.
That could be incredible, almost like if it was done in a similar format to what are those shows on History, like Porn Stars and Hardcore Porn.
Oh
Those,
my
Oh
god!
god, yeah, that would be amazing.
if it was
people
just
come
like
in to try and
cameramen
get
following him around, doing deals and stuff like that.
That would be so good.
Yeah, that would be fucking sick. And then Nigel's kind of envisaged, like, every episode people trying to get something different back in the fucking portal, or kill it, or send it back from where it came, because we saw a ton of shit come out. And they canonised his role, didn't they? Sort of like taking care of all the weird shit that lives in Browntown.
Yeah.
Not getting out to the public and stuff.
I wonder how that works, because we see in so many scenes just Sasquatches just walking around in the town, nothing's going on.
Well, something I found when I was watching a Mike Nolan show again. In that episode where they fuck him up with that bomb, like, he mentions that he doesn't think that the boys are actually human. Like, does everyone think that they're just really hairy humans? He did mention that. Oh my, I don't think those boys are humans.
Which episode was that? I can't remember now.
Oh, what was it? Ding Dong Deli, when they bring the camera into Donnie's shop and they all go to the back.
Oh yeah.
And they fuck Mike Nolan up because they put a load of shit in the bomb.
Oh, it's very good. I
It gives you
wonder
the best screenshot from the show ever, just all four of the Sasquatches laughing.
I wondered if the Mike Nolan show is set in the same universe as the Big Les show that we've seen.
It seems to be, because Sassy mentions to Jez that Mike Nolan got another show and he just kind of goes along with it, implying that he had one before.
Good catch on that. I noticed that as well. I think it's in canon.
Character of Jazz interesting.
Yeah. One thing I always like is in the Mike Nolan show when Les shoots Clarence, he shoots him the exact same way he goes on to shoot Norton. And then the King uses his gooch gun to kill Les in the exact same way that he killed Norton.
It's
like the cosmic karma that Sassy went on about.
Yeah. Hey, Tom, remember what we spoke about the other day, just on the subject of father and son? There's that sort of anti-Star Wars moment at the end of Trimmer Island 3, I think, where just like Darth Vader turns around to Luke and that, I am your father moment. Les turns around to Quentin, and one of the last things he says to him is, "Look, I'm not your fucking dad. I love you."
Yeah.
Off. And it was such a Big Les style slant on it. But I guess the wider thing that I'm trying to say is there's a theme through the Big Les show, that father-son dynamic. He's a cunt to Quentin, but really loves the fuck out of him and just doesn't know how to be a good dad.
Yeah, it's that family trope of, I'm a fucking cunt to you, but no other person is going to be a cunt to you. Being an asshole is kind of their way of showing love in a weird, strange way.
Yeah, or no matter how much of a cunt Les is, he's nowhere near as much of a cunt as Larinox.
Yeah, but he'll always do everything he can to get, to make sure Quentin's safe.
I think the only thing about that is that obviously we know that Les wants the money from Quentin's fund to buy all of his Glenwald dolls.
Yeah, fucking
if anything happens to Quentin,
he's not a good person, he's a shit person.
Terrible.
But when it comes to life or death scenarios, he'll always choose Quentin.
We need a Quentin series, don't we, boys? We need a backstory filled out.
Test tube baby.
Fucking test tube baby.
It's a whole backstory, no need to get into it now.
Can't wait.
I wonder what he would do though if he decided to just make an entirely new series, separate from anything in the Big Les show.
I don't think I think even if we did do that, because sorry, I was going to say
you say first. I will say in a minute.
You remember the first time we got the movie director shit dropped on us with Clarence Claymore, the movie.
Oh yeah.
Sort of like that fourth wall doco style video drop. I remember when that dropped, I was fucking confused, and I took an instant dislike to it. I was like, oh shit. If this is canon, this pisses me off because it takes away the genuine sort of impact of Les dying. To suddenly think, oh shit, he's an actor. So when that came out, I was kind of hoping for what you were saying, Tom. I was like, fucking please let this be completely unrelated to the Big Les show. Just let it be something that he's fucking cooked up to do whatever. But typical Jared, it's always linked. It's always part of the bigger picture, and that meta story just keeps fucking building, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I kind of don't know if I would fall for it again, even if he came up.
There's documented evidence of a cancer treatment that worked in the 1890s. An electric car, customers begged to keep, and a nuclear reactor that couldn't meltdown. All three of these things were killed on purpose, and it has led to many a conspiracy theory as to why. The cases of these happenings we're talking about today are not rumors or speculation. These are documented on camera. They're in peer-reviewed journals or in declassified government reports. And not a conspiracies, okay? Even though they are. It's always a conspiracy. And the conspiracy's just news 6 months before it breaks. Am I right? How about Tennessee in the 1960s at the Oak Ridge National Laboratory? It's the atomic age when nuclear power was supposed to be too cheap to meter. Unlimited clean energy, the future everyone was promised in that age. But the engineers know the problem. Solid uranium fuel rods submerged in water for cooling. That is the problem. If the cooling fails and the rods overheat, that's bad. If they overheat enough, they melt. The metal cladding fails, the uranium core melts through containment, there's a radioactive release, that's a meltdown, and that's a catastrophic Homer Simpson level type deal, okay? But we're in the 60s. 3 Mile Island wouldn't happen until 1979, and the incident in Chernobyl wouldn't happen until 1986. Fukushima, 2011. In the 1960s, though, engineers already know that this is possible and that this is a ticking time bomb, essentially. A fellow by the name of Alvin Weinberg is the director of Oak Ridge National Laboratory. He's a physicist and Manhattan Project veteran who's been the director since 1955 there. He knows the obvious potential of nuclear power. He also knows the obvious potential of its danger. He asks a question. What if the fuel was already liquid? His team at Oak Ridge builds the molten salt reactor experiment, the MSRE. Fuel isn't solid rods, it's uranium that's dissolved in molten fluoride salts. Liquid fuel flows through the reactor core, it gets hot, it transfers heat to generate steam, and that drives turbines, produces electricity, and then it cycles back. By the way, that's how nuclear power works. Steam. That's what actually puts the power into motion. With the molten system, if something goes wrong, for example, a loss of power or a cooling failure, maybe an operator error, Chernobyl, the liquid fuel drains. It drains passively using gravity. There's no pumps required. It drains into shielded tanks that are underground, and the geometry of the tanks prevents criticality. The reaction stops. It is a fail-safe that is designed by nature, kind of. You can't have a meltdown because the fuel is already molten, and you can't have a runaway reaction because the fuel drains automatically if the core temperature rises past its safe limits. So they're testing this thing, and in 1965, the MSRE goes critical. It is the first sustained nuclear reaction. It runs until 1969. That's 4 years and over 13,000 hours at full power. During those 4 years, they test everything. They shut it down intentionally, dozens of times to verify the safety systems. They drain the fuel, prove the passive drain works. They restart it. They switch fuel types. They go from uranium-233 to uranium-235 to test fuel flexibility. It all performs flawlessly. The operational reports are positive, and Paul Haubenreich, chief engineer, writes in the 1970 final report, "The MSRE operation has demonstrated that a molten salt reactor can be operated safely and reliably." That's his voice. He sounds like that. It is a technical success, a proven concept, and safer than conventional solid fuel reactors by its very design. So obviously the next step is the government funds this further. They scale it up and build commercial molten salt reactors, and we eventually have our own in our backyard that powers our AI systems, right? Wrong. You see, in 1969, Richard Nixon is the president, and the Atomic Energy Commission gets new leadership. A guy by the name of Milton Shaw becomes director of the Office of Reactor Development, and Shaw has a mandate. The liquid metal fast breeder reactor, the LMFBR, is America's nuclear future. All resources will focus there. The LMFBR is a different design. It is solid uranium fuel cooled by liquid sodium. Sodium, though, is problematic. It explodes on contact with water and burns on contact with air. So, it's a bad idea. It seems like, just on paper, a little bit, the reactor is complex, expensive, and technically challenging. So why the would they choose it? Well, it's the B in the name right there. It has one feature that the molten salt reactor doesn't have. It breeds plutonium, and it breeds a lot of plutonium. The LMFBR produces plutonium that can be reprocessed for weapons programs. The military-industrial complex, guys. Hiding nuclear tensions, Cold War, the LMFBR isn't just a civilian power reactor. It's a dual use that produces electricity and feeds the weapons pipeline. The molten salt reactor produces minimal plutonium. It's optimized for safety and efficiency, not weapons material. For civilian power generation, it's superior. For military purposes, it's useless, which means we're not going to use it. Now, obviously, Weinberg fights for the MSR. He publishes papers, gives presentations to the AEC, and argues that for civilian power, for public safety, the molten salt design is clearly superior. And he's not shy about saying that. I mean, he said it lots. The LMFBR is prioritized because of the military-industrial complex, not for the people of America. In 1972, Alvin Weinberg, director of Oak Ridge for 18 years, is fired. And take a guess why. Was it because he opened an email and unleashed a zip bomb in the intranet, which didn't even exist at that time? No. Is it because he was caught in a love triangle scandal with Allen Dulles, the director of the CIA? No. It was because he advocated for the wrong reactor, the one for the people of the United States of America. Sorry, dweeb. Nerd. No defense contracts for you. Later in his life, he wrote a memoir called The First Nuclear Era, and in that he wrote, "I was still espousing the molten salt breeder. We were pushing molten salt, not LMFBR." So maybe he was just reassigned. Maybe he wasn't actually fired, but, you know, kind of unfair, to be honest, if you ask me. Either way, the man who oversaw the successful operation of the MSRE, who proved the concept and that it worked, is removed because he wouldn't stop advocating for it. And on December 12, 1969, the MSRE was shut down. The official reason from the AEC memo was so that funds supporting its operation could be used elsewhere in the research and development program. Israel. 50 billion, I guess. I don't really know. I thought that's a joke. Maybe it's funny. Maybe it has to do with the assassination of JFK. I really don't know. I'm just the conspiracy guy. I'm a crackpot. And to be honest, before I filmed this video, I hit the crack pipe. In 1976, the entire molten salt reactor program is terminated. This is after it's already been defunded. Weinberg is gone, the funding is gone, and Oak Ridge moves on to other projects. The LMFBR, meanwhile, is consuming billions of dollars. The Clinch River Breeder Reactor Project, the flagship of the American LMFBR program, launched in 1972. It was projected to cost $400 million by 1981, 2.2 billion by 1983, 3.6 billion. By the way, it never operates. Congress cancels the project in 1983 after spending $3 billion of 1980s dollars, and there's zero electricity generated. Are you kidding me? France builds their own version of an LMFBR called the Super Phoenix. It opens in 1986, but it is plagued by sodium leaks and technical problems. It operates intermittently before closing in 1998. It operated for 2 years out of 12 and cost them $12 billion. Japan builds an LMFBR called Manju, and in 1995, a catastrophic sodium leak dumps 3 tons of liquid sodium that catches fire. The reactor shuts down and stays offline for 14 years, briefly restarts in 2010, shuts down again in 2011, and finally closes permanently in 2016, guys. And what's the total electricity generated in its 20-year lifetime? Almost none. Total cost? Over $9 billion. The LMFBR, the reactor that was supposed to be the future, fails repeatedly, expensively, and catastrophically every time. The government said the molten salt reactor was too experimental and defunded it in 1976, but it ran successfully for 4 years with 0 serious safety incidents, and the LMFBR, plagued by sodium fires, cost overruns, technical failures, got 50 years of funding and was built in multiple countries. Billions of dollars were spent on it, multiple failed projects, and it is still considered a viable design for future reactors. My assumption is that it was just making plutonium. It's just, you know, who cares about electricity generation? That's just to get funding. It's going to generate electricity. Imagine if our elected officials had to show when they were crossing their fingers when they made a promise. Imagine. and then we could tar and feather them and round them up.
All sorts of
Am I right, fellow Americans?
and we'll do them.
So after all this, conventional solid fuel reactors, the design that can melt down due to the laws of nature, became the global standard. 3 Mile Island occurred on March 28, 1979. It was a partial meltdown. Solid fuel rods overheated, the core was damaged, and containment was breached. It was a $1 billion cleanup, and an entire region was evacuated. Chernobyl happened April 26, 1986. Excellent television show, by the way, one of my favorites. That reactor exploded. 50 people died immediately, and thousands more died from radiation exposure and cancers directly linked. There was a 30-kilometer exclusion zone that is still radioactive to this day and will be for 20,000 years, guys. Good job, humans. Then we have Fukushima Daiichi in March of 2011. There was an earthquake, then a tsunami, and a cooling system failure. 3 reactors melted down, 160,000 residents were evacuated, and the exclusion zone there still remains in effect. And Japan's not a very big place, so that's even worse. So it seems like most, if not all, of the reasons people think that nuclear energy is scary and terrifying are all caused because of these disasters. They're a result of these disasters and conventional solid fuel reactors. None of these disasters would or could have happened with a molten salt reactor. The failure modes are completely different. The fuel's already liquid and drains if the core overheats. Meltdown is physically impossible. It's already melted. But we all collectively chose the reactors that could and did fail catastrophically. Good job. Why? Because they make plutonium, and military priorities obviously are going to override civilian safety, and because the Nixon administration wanted nuclear bombs more than it wanted safe energy for its people. And now we have an actual issue with energy in America, which I do like the military a lot, and I like guns, and I'm not so much on bombs, really, or drones or anything like that. I like guns a lot. It's sad, man. It's sad. I would rather have nuclear energy. Is that Todd Howard? Weird. Although, get this, my friends. The technology didn't die completely. China is developing molten salt reactors. Of course they are. Their TMSR LF1 went critical in 2021. It was the first new MSR in over 50 years. TerraPower, funded by Bill Gates, is reviving thorium-based molten salt designs. They're partnering with the U.S. Department of Energy, and there are startup companies across the United States, Canada, and Europe that are pursuing variations. A couple examples are Terrestrial Energy, Moltex, and Thorcon. I live really close to a nuclear reactor, and it's very scary to me. I live like next to it. I see Homer on his way to work, Mr. Simpson. 50 years of dangerous reactors, nuclear horrors, 3 major public disasters, public fears that were unlocked that nearly killed nuclear power entirely, all preventable. Because in 1969, decided plutonium was more important than safety, so that's what I say to that. In the early 90s, Los Angeles is a shithole. The sky is brown. Stage 3 smog alert, so bad that children stay inside during recess. The air, it tastes foul. The California Air Resources Board, or CARB, measures particulates, and in the early 90s, they were watching emissions climb. The headquarters is in yet another shithole, Sacramento. Staff scientists were poring over data showing Los Angeles reaching the federal clean air standards. They face a choice. Incremental improvements, tighter standards on tailpipes that still burn gasoline, or, of course, a revolution. Electric vehicle revolution. This is the 90s, by the way. They're commonplace now. Jeananne Sharpless became the CARB chairwoman in 1989. A former state legislator and environmental advocate who was not interested in incremental change. In September of 1990, during a CARB board meeting in beautiful Sacramento, Jeananne proposed the zero emissions vehicle mandate, which made 2% of every automaker's California fleet required to be emission-free by 1998, then 5% by 2001, and 10% by 2003. That's very aggressive and did not happen like that. GM was like this. They said, the technology doesn't exist. You're asking us to build cars that can't be built. Fast forward to 1996. GM has the EV1 program that is run by Ken Baker, the Vice President of R&D for GM. And Baker, working out of the GM Technical Center in Warren, Michigan, believes in what they're building. This team produces something that doesn't look like even a compliment. It's a sleek, beautiful, and aerodynamic machine with coefficient drag of 0.19. better than most sports cars. 0 to 60 in under 8 seconds with a range of 70 to 100 miles depending on the battery pack. It's fast, and it's a real car. Now, in December of 1996, back in California, GM begins leasing EV1s. That's the name of this creature. Lease only. There's no option to purchase. The contract is explicit. GM retains ownership of EV1. At this time, the lease-only requirement looks like a risk management for new technology in an uncertain market. But later, something else. Customers really love the EV1. Customers start joining EV1 clubs where they gather together and evangelize by saying, "We love our car!" Harmonizing. And it makes sense. This thing's awesome. There's no oil changes, no transmission service, no exhaust repairs, brake pads that last 100,000 miles due to regenerative braking. You plug it in at night, it's ready in the morning. This thing is a Tesla well before Tesla was even a thing. So GM, obviously seeing this massive response, scales up. There's more leases, more cities, they expand the program, right? In 2001, a fellow by the name of Alan Lloyd became the car chairman. Dr. Alan Lloyd, respected and credentialed individual. He's also simultaneously the chairman of the California Fuel Cell Partnership, which is a consortium of automakers and oil companies devoting hydrogen fuel cells as the clean technology of the future, as opposed to hydrogen fuel cells require infrastructure, though. They require fueling stations, distribution networks, and hydrogen production. And if you know anything about science and stuff, you know that hydrogen is really hard to come by. The point is, all this is controlled by the same companies that currently sell gasoline. Battery electric vehicles plug into an outlet at home. The infrastructure already exists at every human being's house. And then they want to do this other thing that is controlled by oil and gas. April 24th, 2003. Sacramento, California, beautiful city. Dr. Lloyd presides. The board votes to amend the zero-emission vehicle mandate. The original target, 10% of California's fleet, roughly 100,000 vehicles by 2003, is now 250 vehicles total by 2008. That seems like a lower number. 100,000 vehicles down to 250. That's a 99.75% reduction. That is Jay Leno's garage, literally. To the automakers, they go big gas to exceed the carb repeatedly. They want a zero is completely dead. A short while after this happens, GM sends a letter to all the PCs of their beloved EV1 platform.
When I noticed that GM was losing interest is when I wanted to release my car, and they wouldn't like it. They didn't worry about this car. They said, "Oh, you can lease the car." So turn it in by such and such a date, or yours that will help out.
And obviously, the customers who love their vehicles say, "I'll buy it. I don't care. You know, I'll pay double the residual value." GM says, "Not for sale."
Voting and holding this check, offering $1.9 million to General Motors to put these cars back on the road.
Despite the offer, GM didn't respond. It's all very confusing with the no oil change. That's a massive loss. That's a huge hit to their vehicular economy. No transmission service. It's $500 every 50,000 miles for a vehicle. That's also lost. No exhaust system repairs. $800 over a total lifetime of the vehicle lost. That's $3,000 to $4,000 extra per vehicle that they're no longer making because the vehicle is so good. Awesome. Multiply that $3,000 to $4,000 by every EV sold. Multiply that by millions of vehicles. Dealerships make around a 50% margin off the rev from service bays, and the EV1 clearly threatens that. Hydrogen fuel cell infrastructure aligns with existing fueling model and supply chain partnerships.
I think the reason the oil industry likes hydrogen so much is that hydrogen is basically a way for them to ship something around in their trucks to not charging stations, but fueling stations, just like oil. It's the same exact paradigm for the oil industry.
So clearly, somebody didn't want this thing going anywhere. Oil industry lobbying expenditures from 2000 to 2003 are public record, and their message was absolute and consistent. Battery electric vehicles are a niche product with limited consumer appeal. Hydrogen represents the future. Now, we're obviously seeing in 2025 that that's not the case, and every single manufacturer of vehicles is jumping on the EV bandwagon. Next step, let the leases expire and take away people's EV1s. This thing they actually tried to erase from history. It is a car that I had no idea existed ever until researching for this video, and lobbyists and oil companies for the greater good of people buying vehicles? No, not for consumers whatsoever. Did their best to erase this vehicle from history. So everyone's cars across California are being snatched up by the big, bad, evil man, and customers organize protests. They offer to buy the cars, they file petitions, some offer to sign waivers releasing GM from all liability. Just let us keep the cars. GM obviously refuses every single offer. The cars are then transported to a GM facility in Mesa, Arizona, out in the desert where it's remote.
We could see right next to the racetrack where the EV1 was first tested, we saw, I don't know, maybe 50 EV1s crushed and put on top of semi-flatbeds.
Activists track them down, some follow the trucks, they take photos of stacks of EV1s, dozens of them, and then there's a crusher. They get destroyed. Thank you to ZocDoc for sponsoring this video. Listen, it's almost the end of 2025, and we can't keep pretending that walking it off is a real medical plan. I myself am tired of Googling a sore throat and being told that I need more water or I'm dying. There is a third option. It is an application that has been a long time sponsor of this channel. It's called ZocDoc. ZocDoc is a free app and website where you can search and compare actual high-quality in-network doctors. They've got more than 100,000 different providers across everything from primary care, dental, eye doctors, urgent care, even mental health. Plus, every doctor has verified patient reviews, so you're not just guessing like you do with gas station sushi. And when you find your person, you can see their real appointments and openings, pick a time that works, and then book instantly. ZocDoc handles every corner of your body, every nook, every cranny. The best part is appointments usually happen within 24 to 72 hours, and a lot of the time, it's same day. Use ZocDoc, stop putting off doctor's appointments, and go to zocdoc.com/Oopaville to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/Oopaville. It's on the screen, QR code, whatever you need to do. There have been a few over the years that have showed up at different impound auctions, places like that, where they're kind of beyond the purview of what GM was allowed to take back. Pretty interesting. But either way, they crushed them some bitches up. There's even a documentary called Who Killed the Electric Car that films all of this. The crusher descending, cars flattening into piles of compressed metal, electric vehicles that were once perfectly functional and beloved by their owners, completely destroyed. Why? You know why, dude. The car was going to kill their maintenance revenue and destroy their partnership with the hydrogen industry. Oil, big gas. They didn't literally kill the electric car to protect oil company profits. It was more of a writing of strategic partner engagement and protection from the leaked memos and presentation slides that came out during the discovery of unrelated litigation.
I wasn't around for EV1 quite yet. I wasn't in the company, but I think that would have been one example of something that the company should not have done, which was cancel.
We should not have done that. That's the current president of GM, by the way, saying, we should not have canceled the EV1. Sorry, didn't mean to make fun of him like that, but I'm ruthless, dude. You should see me off camera. I'm a really mean person. Like, actually mean. Really mean. I dream about making fun of people. So, not a conspiracy. The current leader of the company that did this is like, yeah, we definitely shouldn't have done that. This was 20 years ago, 25 years ago. Imagine how different vehicles would look now if there were electric ones. By the way, I don't have any electric vehicles. I don't really like them very much. I have a golf cart, right? And I have an F-250. Okay, the opposite of an electric vehicle. I don't know why I said that. I'd like to get one, but everywhere you go where I live is like 2 hours. You have to drive 2 hours to get one. Maybe one of these days I'll stop destroying the environment. Now let us return further to the past, to New York City at the New York Cancer Hospital, later renamed the Memorial Sloan Kettering Hospital. We are now following a man named William Bradley Coley. He's a 28-year-old surgeon who just finished training in his first year on staff. He treated a 17-year-old girl named Elizabeth who had an inoperable bone sarcoma. The tumor was gigantic. It wrapped around the radius in her right forearm. Due to how invasive the tumor was, the surgery would require amputation. There's not really any good options. And once again, it's 1890. Coley tries, and tragically, the girl died. Now, surgeons lose patients today, but in 1890, it happened all the time. But for some reason, Coley couldn't let it go. And he does what doctors do when they lose a young patient. He searches the hospital for records looking for similar cases, things that may have worked on other people. In his searching, he found a file from 1885 for a patient named Fred Stein. The diagnosis was an inoperable sarcoma of the neck and tonsil. Stein had been sent home to die, but something happened. He developed a severe bacterial infection, erysipelas, which was caused by the Streptococcus bacteria. The infection nearly killed him. His fever spiked to 105 degrees Fahrenheit. He spent weeks delirious, but when the infection finally cleared, something strange happened. His tumor had shrunk, and it kept shrinking. And by the time Stein recovered from the infection, the cancer was nearly gone. So Coley sets out to find Stein. Lo and behold, he is still alive 7 years after being sent home to die, and Stein is cancer-free, free of a sarcoma of the neck and tonsils. So Coley, now obviously onto something, searches further and finds 6 more cases. Different patients, different hospitals, and the same type of pattern. A severe bacterial infection, high fever, regression of a tumor. It is not a fluke. It's a replicable thing that has happened to multiple people. Science. Then, a year after going down this rabbit hole, Coley has a patient, an Italian immigrant named Zola, with an inoperable sarcoma of the neck. The tumor is large, visible, and growing. Coley makes a decision that would horrify every modern medical ethics board. He deliberately infects the patient with live Streptococcus bacteria. He injects bacteria directly into the tumor. So the fever comes, 104 degrees, then 105. The patient is delirious and near death as the infection rages. Coley monitors and adjusts, all trying to keep the infection from killing the patient outright. And then the tumor shrinks visibly and measurably, and it works. And over the next 40 years, William Coley treats more than 1,000 cancer patients with what becomes known as Coley's toxins. He refines the approach over time, switching from live bacteria to killed bacteria to reduce the risk of uncontrolled infection, and he even eventually settles on the ultimate cocktail of bacteria. It's a mixture of Streptococcus pyogenes and Serratia marcescenses. They're heat-killed and suspended in a delicious, succulent solution. Coley even publishes his findings in peer-reviewed medical journals. For example, the treatment of malignant tumors by repeated inoculations of erysipelas. This appeared in the American Journal of the Medical Sciences in 1893. He documents cases with photographs from before and after with names, dates, and outcomes. For certain cancers, bone and soft tissue sarcomas especially, his reported success rates are extraordinary, even by today's standards with modern medicine. He achieved complete regression in some cases and long-term remission in others. Now we jump forward a few years to the early 1900s. Dr. James Ewing is a pathologist and pioneer in cancer research. He's Coley's supervisor, and he sees a different future. In 1895, Wilhelm Röntgen discovered X-rays, and by 1900, doctors realized that radiation can target tumors. It's clean, it's precise, and doesn't involve injecting patients with dead bacteria and waiting through fevers. It's a lot more replicable. It's a lot easier to study. And radiation therapy can be standardized with the same dose, same targeting, same protocol. Every single time, it's a more scientific method. So Coley's supervisor, Ewing, becomes a champion of radiation therapy. It requires expensive equipment. A single X-ray machine in the 1920s cost tens of thousands of dollars, which is equivalent to hundreds of thousands of doll hairs today. But once a hospital invests, it can treat patient after patient with standardized protocols, measurable doses, and repeatable procedures. On the flip side, Coley's toxins are more labor-intensive. Every batch must be carefully prepared, potency can vary, and dosing has to be individualized because each patient responds differently. You have to monitor through fevers and adjust in real time. It's more of a magic than a medicine, and it doesn't scale very well. Especially not in the late 1800s and early 1900s. People were off the wall back then. So we get to the 1920s and 30s, and the American Medical Association is pushing for standardization. This era becomes the era of scientific medicine with evidence-based protocols and reproducible results. Lobotomy still, but it's starting to look more like modern medicine. And Coley's approach, though documented in journals, doesn't necessarily fit that model. It's too variable and too dependent on the judgment of individual physicians. Ewing champions radiation, and funding follows. Hospitals invest in X-ray equipment, training programs emphasize radiation protocols, and Coley's toxins become marginalized. Not because they don't work, and not because they're not delicious, but because they don't fit the business model of standardized equipment-dependent medicine. So things are starting to make more sense now. Then a few more years goes by and chemotherapy emerges. The origin of chemotherapy is bleak. To be honest with you, mustard gas, a chemical weapon from World War I, is found to shrink tumors. Nitrogen mustard becomes the first chemotherapy drug. Then after that, there are more. Pharmaceutical companies invest, then there's large-scale clinical trials, we have standardized protocols, and modern medicine starts to really take shape. Coley eventually dies in 1936, and his daughter, Helen Coley Knotts, tries to continue the work. She catalogs her father's cases, publishes analyses, advocates for funding, but by this time, the momentum has completely shifted. Cancer treatment is now radiation plus surgery plus chemotherapy. It's the three pillars of oncology. Coley's toxins are off patent. Anyone can mix up the delicious cocktail. Bacterial cultures aren't exclusive. There's no pharmaceutical company with an incentive to fund expensive phase 3 trials. There's no profit protection. There's no real benefit, on paper at least. Then comes 1962. The Kefauver-Harris Amendment passes, and FDA drug approval requirements tighten. That pesky FDA. It's at this point that any drug must prove safety and efficacy through rigorous controlled trials. Oh, what does that even mean? By the way, me using this to say safety and all this stuff and take the piss out of the FDA is a joke. I think modern medicine is incredible, and I think doctors are genius people, and I think that the only thing that makes them more effective beyond their existing system and infrastructure is if their patients also try to actually take care of themselves and eat healthy and so on and so forth. I am very much for modern medicine. I love it, guys. So Coley's toxins, which were up until this point in use for decades without formal FDA approval, are now retroactively classified as an unapproved drug. So to continue using them, it would require multi-million-dollar clinical trials. And obviously, no one funds the trials. Why the would they? Just because they're delicious doesn't mean that they're worth spending money on. And off-patent bacterial preparation competing with patented chemotherapy drugs that you can just make. Pharmaceutical companies fund trials for drugs that they can sell exclusively because we have a system that is built upon that. Coley's toxins offer zero exclusivity, and they're delicious. I keep saying that. I'm sorry if that's a joke that you guys don't think is funny, but I think it's funny to imagine drinking stuff like that. I don't know why. By 1965, Coley's toxins are completely abandoned, and in mainstream oncology, the first step is to use surgery to remove tumors, then use radiation to kill the remaining cells, and chemotherapy to target metastases. And at this point in time, immunotherapy, the idea that you could activate the immune system to fight cancer, is dismissed as a type of pseudoscience. Look what these people used to do. They used to feed them delicious cocktails to cure their cancer and stuff. So 30 years goes by. The 1990s, James P. Allison, an immunologist from the University of California, Berkeley. He's not studying cancer, he's studying T cells, aka white blood cells that attack invaders. He discovers a protein on the surface of T cells called CTLA4. It functions as a brake, and when CTLA4 is activated, T cells stop attacking. So Allison realizes tumors are not invisible to the immune system sees tumors, but the brakes on T cells are off. If CTLA4 is activated, T cells are inhibited and tumors can grow unchecked. So the hypothesis is block CTLA4, release the brake, T cells may attack the tumor. By the mid-90s, the year I was born, Allison tests it in mice. He blows those sumbitches up like little balloons. He injects them with tumors. They're disgusting. They're disfigured. It's like the movie I Am Legend. He treats them then with antibodies that block CTLA4. The tumors shrink, some disappear completely, and mice that should be dead are cancer-free in his trials. Then meanwhile, in Japan, we have Tasuku Honjo at Kyoto University. He discovers another brake for T cells, PD-1. Same exact principle, block it, the immune system then attacks tumors. Pharmaceutical companies then start to take notice. This is a patentable thing. These are called monoclonal antibodies. They are complex molecules, expensive to manufacture, and protectable under patent law. Unlike Coley's bacterial cultures, these are exclusive, profitable, and not nearly as delicious. So fast forward to 2011, the FDA approves ipilimumab, a CTLA4 inhibitor for metastatic melanoma. Stage 4 melanoma, terminal diagnosis, average life expectancy a couple months. Some patients treated with ipilimumab go into complete remission and years later are still cancer-free. More drugs follow. Pembrolizumab, nivolumab, nivolumab, or Opdivo, I've seen commercials for these, which is insane. I remember from my childhood or young teenager years seeing commercials for these things, especially ipilimumab. These things are pretty remarkable. They transform treatment for melanoma, lung cancer, kidney cancer, and other things, but not every patient responds, but for those who do, it is transformative. And in 2018, the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine is awarded to James P. Allison and Tasuku Honjo. The Nobel citation explicitly references early immunotherapy pioneers. William Coley's name appears in that Nobel Prize. And now modern scientific papers call him the father of immunotherapy and a master mixologist. So the mechanism that Allison and Honjo discovered, it activates the immune system and it kills cancer cells. It's the same fundamental mechanism that William Coley stumbled onto in 1891, over 100 years earlier, when he injected a patient with bacteria and watched a tumor shrink. So we abandoned this thing for 70 years, and it took 100 years from its first inception for it to start to be really studied, and then over that for it to win a couple people a Nobel Prize. It was abandoned not because it didn't work, but rather because it didn't fit into the model of 20th century medicine, and that was a profit model. So, and that seems conspiratorial to say, but it really, unless I'm completely wrong, it's just not. That's just the reality of it. Obviously, technology has improved drastically, and we no longer do a lot of dumb shit, but it seemed like Coley had kind of a layup, and the reason that it was abandoned is because he was ahead of his time. And in the modern times, checkpoint inhibitors, the successors of Coley's predecessors, are now multi-billion-dollar drugs. Keytruda alone is $25 billion in annual sales. They're profitable because they're patentable molecular therapies that are exclusive and controlled in the modern delicious mix of various bacteria scraped off various surfaces from the 1800s. It is insane, though. The underlying principle, immune activation kills cancer, was available in 1891 for the cost of bacterial cultures. And now it's a multi-billion-dollar industry that's owned. It seems, I don't know, I'm no commie, all right, guys? I'm no dirty commie, okay? But, I kind of get it in that sense. I kind of understand it. What is horrible and tragic to think about and start to ponder is the idea of how many cancer patients died in that gap who may have responded to immunotherapy. Everybody has been touched by cancer, and everybody will be touched by cancer. Not physically necessarily. I think it's 1 in 2. 50% of people will develop some form of cancer at some stage in their life. But just knowing somebody who you love who will develop and die from cancer is very likely. It's just tragic to think about that, and it's f***ed up. But it's part of life, though, obviously, and that's what all life is. Apparently just suffering, I've learned, as I've gotten older, which is pretty f***ed up. So, we'll never know how many people could have been saved by this drug if it wasn't for the damn FDA. Just kidding. I know it's more complicated than that. I know it's not a deliberate Stromboli situation of a guy, cancer's good! But it definitely is a result of a system that is massively flawed. So let's be real about that. We've established a pattern here. There are evil forces at work. Are they direct evil forces, like some kind of Stromboli figure pulling the strings behind the curtain? No. There are corporate espionage cases that have made it to court with documented theft convictions and massive, insane, terrifying settlements. If you invent something that goes against the status quo, you're in danger legally. Let's take, for example, former Google engineer working on Waymo, Google's self-driving car project. In January of 2016, he downloaded 14,000 confidential files covering LiDAR technology, autonomous vehicle systems, and proprietary Google algorithms. He leaves Google, takes that stuff, and starts a self-driving truck company called Otto. On October 2016, Uber acquires Otto for $680 million. Waymo sues. There's an overwhelming level of evidence, and in February of 2018, Uber settles with $245 million to Waymo. They agree to not use the stolen technology, and in August of 2019, Lewandowski, the man who did this, is criminally charged with 33 counts of trade secret theft. So we have 3 cases, 3 different times something like this happened in very big ways. How many times did a small startup of 3 people create something that then was destroyed through attrition by some kind of defensive patent lawsuit? We don't want that. We don't want that getting out in the market. Here's an NDA and $100 million, so it never does because it will destroy our business. How many times has that happened and there's just no way for us to ever know? Who knows, dude? I certainly don't. But we do know when companies buy patents not to develop technology, but rather to prevent competitors from developing that technology. Nintendo does this shit all the time. For example, why are batteries so shit still? How many battery chemistry improvements are locked in oil company patent portfolios? How many solar panel efficiency gains are shelved by utility companies? We have no idea. We'll never know. Patents are public, but the decision to use or not use them isn't necessarily. And some of them are theoretical and all this stuff. It's like, what's NDA, what's not? It's pretty crazy. At a certain point, it seems like all this stuff starts to blend together. And you go down the list of all the conspiracies. For example, MK Ultra documents. The CIA destroyed most of the records in 1973. The 20,000 pages that survive are totally incomplete. What was in the files that they burned? Or how many brilliant scientists pursued cold fusion in the 90s and got laughed out of conferences and switched careers? Or how many immunotherapy researchers in the 70s, just after the FDA activation, gave up after being told immunotherapy is pseudoscience? Luckily, nowadays, the internet makes suppression harder. For example, I just saw a tweet from John Brennan, the former director of the CIA, saying that the CIA will get people to spy for them, and as soon as they decide to not do that anymore, they're blackmailed. So you can't trust or believe anything that isn't open source, essentially. And unfortunately, you have to go to things that are open source. But fortunately, there's a lot of options now that are just available for people, and it's going to continue to grow and grow and grow because people are awesome, and hopefully, you know, we'll continue getting better. I think. I hope. I don't really know, guys.
Bruh. Bruh.
Better see the Duke again.
How was it? Did you learn anything?
I found these feathers. Now tell me how to fix this like you said you would.
Settle down. First, you must use that key and collect all of your little roses flasks.
Where are the rest of them?
There are 4 in total. You have the one, and the other lords have the rest.
Lords?
Mother Miranda is the cold... If you truly wish to save your daughter, you must first gather the... You wish to make a purchase? Ah, yes, I have you. Find some quality ingredients and bring them to me. You no longer need this? This is all an investment, Ethan. Have a wonderful adventure.